Hi again, apologies for that. Had some technical problems, i.e. my phone was running out of batteries. So I've got a trusty charger, so apologies for that. Okay, so we were talking about, just a recap, we were talking about how to add value to your next stakeholder meetings. And I was talking about, so therefore what you can do, you can take the meeting as an opportunity to report or to communicate the following. Project status, in terms of whether you are, whether the project is red, whether it's amber, whether it's green. So is it on track? Have there's problems but we can solve them, or we've got problems, the project is running late, the project is running late, we need to do something about it. So you can report on that. You can also report on budget. Hi John, how's, is it Kuwait? Yeah, I hope you and the missus are okay over there. You can also report on budget status in terms of, again, are we are we running out of money? Are we on track in terms of our expenditure, whether it's capex, whether it's revex, or what have you, or we've got problems, but we can bring the budget in. We can bring the actuals in line with the budget. What you can also do is look at your KPIs. These are called critical performance indicators. So if, for instance, you're an author and you plan at this stage to have written 10 chapters, but you've only written 2, that's a graphic, that's a picture that you can actually show and you can communicate to your stakeholders. Similarly, if you're kind of like making bracelets or jewellery, you know, how many items did you believe that you would have done now compared to how many you've actually done? So again, you can communicate that to your stakeholders. Risk assessments. Now, in terms of risk, you know, what are your political risks for the project you're on? What are your economic risks? What are your social risks? What's your technological risks? What are your industry risks? So for instance, if you're an author or if you're a property developer, VAT, we've just had the budgets this week. VAT will impact on your project as a risk potentially. If you're into jewellery, the cost of raw materials, that can impact, particularly if you're using a new supplier. Are your costs higher or lower? So that can impact on your project as well. Quality, that's something that you can communicate to your stakeholders. And so for instance, if you've got kind of like a copywriter who's a junior person, the quality may not be as good as if you've got a senior copywriter. Okay, so those are the sort of things that you can communicate at your stakeholder meetings. Okay, so we've got 5 minutes left. So the last question, so the last question is about how to add value to your project by managing risk. Okay, so a lot of time as a project manager, that's your main role, to manage the risks of your that may incur in your projects. So we've got so I've got, again, because of time, I'll just kind of like run through this. So what you can do, you can first of all identify the risk. Okay, what is the problem? And is it a risk, and is it an issue, or is it an issue? So for instance, a risk is something that might occur, that may occur. An issue is really a risk that has occurred. A lot of the time people kind of think of risk as the same as issues. No, it's not the same. A risk is something that might occur. An issue is something that has occurred. Okay, so when you've got risk, you can sometimes do something about it. But the first thing you've got to do is to identify it. Okay, and you can use your stakeholders at your stakeholder meetings. You can actually use stakeholders to identify the risks that you may have. And then secondly, what you can do is to analyse that risk. Well, what type of risk are we talking about? Is it a legal risk? Is it a financial risk? Is it a risk to do with the schedule? Is it political risk? Is it a risk to do with security? So those are the type of risks that you can have, and then you can prioritize your risk. Okay, because not all risks are treated equally. Not all risks are equal. So what you can do in terms of prioritizing your risk, you can say, okay, then if this risk was to occur, if this risk became an issue, what impact would that have on my project? Is it a high impact, a low impact, or a medium impact? And the second question you can ask is, what is the probability of this risk occurring, of this risk becoming an issue? Is it a high probability? Is it a medium probability? Or is it a low probability? So once you've got your impact, and once you've got the probability of that risk occurring, you can prioritize your risks. You can say, okay, these are all my red risks, these are all my amber risks, and these are all my low-level risks. And again, once you prioritize your risks, you can then assign that risk to an owner. Because it's all well and good you having a register saying that these are all my risks associated with buying a property or building a property. These are all the risks associated with me writing a book or being an author. These are all the risks associated with me painting for a client or making jewellery for a client or a store. But unless you assign someone to be responsible for that risk, more often than not, nothing gets done, and that risk becomes an issue. And therefore, that will impact on your project from a cost point of view, from a time scale point of view, and perhaps even in terms of the quality or the features that you are going to have on your project. You've got to assign somebody to it. Ideally, you can assign someone to it and say, this is a date that you've got to solve it by. Okay? And then the last part in terms of managing risk is how to respond to that risk. Okay, we've got a risk, then what do we do with it? Do we transfer that risk to somebody else? Do we ignore that risk? You may decide to ignore that risk. If it's a low-level risk, you may decide to ignore it. And that is a good response to take. You may try to reduce that risk. There's various things that you can do with a risk once you've identified it, once you've analysed it, once you've prioritised it, and once you've assigned someone to be responsible for that risk. You can, so as I say, you can eliminate it, you can solve it, you can transfer it, you can reduce it. There's various things you can do. Okay, I think my 20 minutes are up. So I hope that you found the answer to those 3 questions to be of use. Okay, please like, comment, and share. Please post questions. If you want more detailed answers, or if you've got other questions as well. Okay, so this is kind of like me, Sheldon St. Clair, hosting the Saturday morning Project Management for Everyone show. Have a blessed day and have a great week. Okay, goodbye.